What is up, guys? Welcome back, and in this video I'm going to be showing you how you can arrange your tracks in FL Studio. Alright, so when arranging your tracks, it's important to note the three most important sections of your songs: the bridges, the build-ups, and the drops. When we're talking about arrangement today, it's important to note that we're talking about the order rather than the length, because the length is not important and it can vary depending on the BPM. So if you're trying to decide a length of sections that you like for your track, I would recommend listening to tracks from people that you enjoy listening to that have similar BPMs to the song that you're trying to produce. Alright, so now I'm going to go over with you guys the different order that is typically used when making a track, as well as the different elements that are typically used in each section. So let's get into that now. Alright, so first is the intro. Typically with the intro, you just want to keep it super simple. Usually you want to leave out the bass, leave out vocals, and usually you just want to stick to maybe a simple melody, maybe a few percussive elements. You also want to have a smooth transition to your bridge, which is your main beginning of your song. So in the bridge, that's when you want to introduce the main parts of your beginning of your song: basses, vocals, a melody, like a strong melody. You want to have percussive elements in there. It's also important to make sure that you switch up the bridge, just because the bridge is one of the longer sections of your song. And so what I typically like to do is I typically like to have the main part of my bridge continue through the whole thing, and the second half of it I usually like to add new elements just to keep it interesting and to retain focus of the listener. You can also start to include build elements in your bridge. This just helps the build feel less unexpected, and again, just transition smoother, make it easier to listen to. Next is the build. For the build, usually want to just introduce drop ideas, as well as have kicks, snares building up, and risers and white noise. The main point of the build is just to build up energy so that you can make a smooth transition from the bridge part of the song, which is a little bit lower energy, to the drop, which should be the highest energy of your song. Speaking of the drop, again, like I said, highest energy part of your song. You should also make sure to switch it up, keep it interesting. I have plenty of videos going over drop techniques on my channel, so make sure to go and check those out. I have ones explaining percussion of drops, chords, all kinds of stuff, and I plan on making more, so make sure you subscribe so that you can see those in the future. After the drop is the bridge. Typically, I like to introduce the second bridge as two-part again, just like the first one. The first part being a little more like the drop than the bridge. So you want to keep some drop elements in there, but take out the main ones just so that it's a smoother transition to the bridge. And then for the second half of the bridge, I usually like to keep it the same as the first half, maybe with a few extra elements. The second build, I usually like to keep exactly the same as the first build. The only differences that you usually see are if your second drop is extremely different from your first drop, you may want to introduce some of those elements from the second drop instead of the ones from the first drop, just so it makes more sense in your track. Second drop, same as the first, keep it high energy. Usually want to switch it up a little from the first drop, just so that your track sounds interesting and doesn't get boring to listeners. Last but not least, we have the outro. So the outro is usually a good spot to play around. Sometimes I like to keep it kind of like the first half of the second bridge, where you keep a lot of the drop elements but take a lot of them away as well. I also usually like to introduce intro ideas just so that it kind of loops back your song as a whole and kind of brings you back, reins you in to get you ready for the end of your song. As far as order, this is the order that you should keep your songs in. It's always okay to deviate when making music, and as long as it sounds good to you, then it's probably good. But if you want to keep your tracks sounding like professional, and you want to keep them sounding well put together, well organized, this is usually a good way to do it. Again, length here is not important, so depending on whether you have a longer or shorter BPM, you may want to stretch these out or shorten them, the length of them. So just always keep that in mind, that BPM affects length, but as far as order goes, this is usually a good order to stick to. Alright, so now I'm going to go into some tracks that I've made and how I use these different elements and arrangements in my own tracks, just so you can see kind of what that looks like. Alright, so here we have one of my tracks. This is an older track, so it's not perfect, but it still works for showing you arrangement, which is what we're talking about. So, just starting off right away, you can just see again, our intro, super simple. There's only one element, and it fades in, and then there's a riser. So just super simple. And then for our bridge, you can see here again, just simple elements here. Bass, our main melodies come in, chords, and then you can see we introduce a new percussion loop here, just to keep it interesting, like I said before. And we start introducing the build a little bit more here, just so it fades in nicer. Okay, and then you can see here that we just have a super simple build. We have just build up drums, risers, impacts, and we just start to introduce the drop a little more, just like I said before. Keeping the drop super simple. I'm not going to go super in depth in this video, but if you are curious about how to make your drops more interesting, what elements to add, I have plenty of videos on my YouTube channel, and I'm planning on making plenty more in the future, so just make sure to subscribe, and yeah, let's get on with it. So here's the drop, and then here we have the bridge. I like to kind of take away the elements, like I said before, of the drop, but keep some of them. So we have that, and it just has a nice smooth transition into the bridge. And then right here, this section of the bridge is the same as over here. So I just like to keep it super simple. And then build, exact same as this build, just with a different melody right here. And drop's a bit different. It's a little bit longer. Usually I would not recommend having a drop this long, like twice as long as your other one. Just that's what sounded good for this song. And remember, if it sounds good, it is good. So just keep that in mind. Outro, again, super simple. It's basically the same as the intro. So I just like to kind of bring it all back full circle. It's usually a nice way to end it out. I think you guys really get the idea here. It's a pretty simple idea. It's just in practice. Now that you've watched this video, I would recommend going and listening to some of your favorite tracks and listening for the order of the arrangement. Listen for the bridge, the build, the drop, how they're ordered, the timing of it, and especially like for timing for your own songs, listen to tracks with a similar BPM as your song, so that you can better estimate the length of what your different elements of your song should be, because it's really based on BPM. So just listen to reference tracks, and yeah, that's the best advice I can give. Alright, so with that, that about wraps it up. I know, super short video, but I'm just trying to keep it as simple as possible so that you guys can understand. And really, arrangement is not that hard. Just after going to this video, watch this video all the way through, maybe a couple times, and then make sure that you go and listen to tracks that you really enjoy, so that you can get an idea of the songs that you like, how they're arranged. And yeah, with that, I hope you guys have a nice day, and see you later. Peace out.